Welcome to Wigglesticks TV. Well, I unplugged. So if you remember from the last time, when I moved this connection a little bit, either the fuel pump came back on or the engine stopped running if it was running. So I just undid the tape and everything on this front section and started to go into the main harness, and I've discovered these two little non-OEM wiring together. What you're looking at now is me unwrapping the wiring harness to see what was happening where those earth points connect and where the some of the ignition wiring connects into those crimp ones. So I end up unwrapping those and discovering a bunch of kind of cracked or not so great connections, and that's what I ended up looking to fix over the course of this little clip. Well, another day, another wiring investigation. So I started to have a look, pull these plugs out of this part of the harness here, and they all look fine. So then I thought I'd go back to this piece that fried in the first place, which connects into the switch gear in the other part of the harness. So this here lines up into this plug, and then I just started to try to pull the pins out, and I'm not sure if you can see it. I'll try and zoom in. But on the base of this orange and black wire and orange and white wire, where it goes into the plug here, there is actually a frayed connection on definitely this particular wire here, and probably this one as well, which lines up to the point in the which lines up exactly in the part that melted in the first harness. So and they're the wires that were getting hot yesterday, so that seems to all make sense. I did some investigation on these pairings down here where it goes to 3 black and white wires of a smaller gauge into one thick one and then back again into 3 here. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense why they would do that, but it's the same on my other harness. So all those joints and everything look okay. I think someone must have just gone into this harness and checked them once before. That was the other tape that I was bringing off there. So that's good news, I think. So I'll go back and I'll re-insulate these. I won't put it completely back together yet. Plug all the harness back in, and then I'll start it with the other switchgear that I fixed. The right-hand switch block thing that I fixed the other day, and get rid of this one because obviously it's not the best. So yeah, progress, I think. I'm pretty happy with that. So just time really. So I'll go back and connect everything back up again and start it up, and then just monitor the heat. So I'm back out here trying to fix this wiring issue. So I've got this other ignition switch block over here, and I'm just going to clean up the wiring. So I've traced it all the way back, and this orange wire, I can't remember if I did this or someone else did it, but anyway, doesn't matter. So I will join this wire back in with the same color wire that I pulled out of that other spare harness I've got. So I'll run that all the way back in because it has a little bit of dodginess up here. So that will be sort of the next stage, just trying to splice back in these wires, clean up these connections. And then I found a potential weak spot in the main harness where 3 of these wires converge in a sort of factory crimp join like this. And when I was pulling one of these other wires out of the harness, I found where it joined, and it was kind of, when you move the wire back around, it felt like it was a breaking connection a little bit. So I'll also investigate where this plugs back in the main harness. It's relatively easy to get to. So that's kind of the next process from here, just to splice these wires into this one, clean up the crimps, reheat shield it, and then we should have a functioning correct wire switch block, and then I can move on to testing the plug itself. You can see the connections in this one need a little bit of a clean up as well, so I'll pop all those out, and this one I'll re-splice it back in, but the rest I'll clean up as well. Managed to rewire all this up, replaced all the bad wires out of it, so took these ones out and then fixed all the wiring back in and replaced a couple of plugs in the end. So now it's all taped up and ready to go back in the harness. So I tested it, it works still, so yeah, I think it's should be right. This had already been replaced in there one time before because it's the wrong thickness of wire and the wrong color, so I had the right colors to strip back in there, so it's all done. So now it's time to get on to the rest of the harness. So I've got all the wiring and everything plugged back in now. All these harnesses are all cleaned up, everything's plugged back in, new key switch. Give it a shot now and see if it'll actually start. It's good, fuel pump, all the gauges are on. Bit of choke. Started pretty quickly actually. Hasn't been started for a few days, so it felt like a much better connection. We'll go and see if it gets hot over here, I guess. Well, I got all this back together and taped it all up to here. Started up was fine, and then I just was kind of moving the wires and stuff around to see if anything would happen, testing for heat or whatnot in the different connections. And the fuel pump just sort of started to kick in and kick out. So I traced it back to the wires. So these two wires here come from the fuel pump, and they're a continuous length of wire from this connection to the fuel pump connection. So when I move those around, there's no problem. However, when you take the earth, it comes back to the other side of this harness around here somewhere where there's that other 3 earths go into one, and then it comes to this join and goes back into this part of the harness. So when I turn the fuel pump on and move this around, it causes the fuel pump to cut in and out. So there must be a weak connection or something inside this part of the wiring harness. So I'll see if I can get it to replicate it now. So fuel pump on. You can kind of hear it cutting in and out. So I'm going to put a bullet connector on here and heat shrink it all together. And with any luck, that will fix the problem. And then if not, I'll go down to the next part where this joins into the other one and put a bullet connection on the other end of it. Good thing is we've got no heat or anything coming in this other part of the harness, so we have fixed where the issue was last time into here. That seems all solid and everything now. So then I'll just work on this little bit here, which I thought would be okay, but obviously there's something wrong with this wire. So if I strip this, yeah, I think that's what we'll do. Well, I thought I had this fixed. I went to turn it back on, had all this wrapped up, and still the fuel pump wouldn't turn on. So I did a bit more investigating and have replaced the wires from this join all the way around back up into here and into the plug as well. With any luck, it was just a piece of bad wire kind of between this section here somewhere and where it joined into this here. The wire did feel pretty brittle. So with any luck, when I turn this on now, we will hear the fuel pump. I haven't turned it on yet, but fingers crossed. Ah, no fuel pump. I have no idea. I don't know why it's starting without the fuel pump. Well, that's a bit weird. I don't understand why it's starting without the fuel pump going on. Huh, so now I've got fuel pump. That's weird. I can hear the relays and everything working. Who knows? That's very weird. All right, I'm gonna button it up and see, because every time I button it up previously, wrap this all back together, put the heat shrink and stuff over to get these together, it hasn't worked. So, all right, we'll see. All right, let's see if this starts. Just a bit of a spin. We'll see how she goes. I'm gonna say that's probably a win. Hasn't started like that for a long time after it's hot. Speedo wasn't working when I was going there, but it's a relatively easy fix, I think. You just disconnect the connector when I was working on the harness. So I got this all back together now. I had a few issues. The first part of the wiring that I did, that you can see on screen now, was not quite ideal because I didn't have the proper connectors. So I ended up redoing that complete wiring that you'll see in a second. I also figured out that the did a test on the fuel pump, just priming it with a battery to make sure the fuel pump was okay, and then went back through the harness and realized as my speedo wasn't working, the earth for the speedo and the earth for the fuel pump go into the same part of the harness. So I ended up having a break in those two wires. So then I went back and used this heat shrink solder splice to get all the wires and stuff back together. And now she runs perfectly. So it's been really wet here for the last few days, so I haven't had a chance to take it out for a spin or anything. I started this a little while ago, but it's got no choke at the moment. We'll see how she goes. The fuel pump you can hear there. But you can see it's starting really, really nicely now. I don't think either my 98 probably doesn't start that well either, that quickly. So it's good signs, I think. With any luck, it'll stop raining here shortly, and then I can take it out for a decent spin. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching, and with any luck, this is the end of the wiring dramas. Bye.